this back, this back vent piece just kind of pops off. Use your detailing tool for upholstery. You'll have 6 7mm screws again. The third one's down here, 1, 2, 3. The other side. You also have a Phillips head here and here. Remove those. Once you have those removed, you can bring this piece to the right and this piece to the left. They're just the tension clips, and that'll be enough for you to pull the center console out. Alright, and installing the progressive controller, remove all of your interior pieces to get to everything. There's videos online. If not, I'll attach it to this video. So what I did here was, this is the center console. I drilled a 5/8 hole down here at the bottom. Put in a little bit larger. I think I did enlarge it a little bit larger than 5/8. Put a little grommet in there, double-sided tape put there, nice and clean. From there you can see this is the Snow Progressive wire loom running through, and then so I just routed to the left side of the gear shifter and then down and through there. Right now you won't be able to see it, but I'll show you later. There will be a ignition or a on-off switch in case I ever just want to turn the whole system off and just run without water methanol. It'll be a button I push and it'll turn the system off to make sure that the pump won't come on even though it's plugged into the progressive, and everything can stay where it's at. So after routing it through by the gear shifter and down, I fished it out. Just pull this little side vent piece out. I fished it out, pulled it out through here, and ran it up in between this metal brace and up here, and it came out right here. So then these are my wires from the lights in the dashboard. I'll tie those in with these and the pumps and get the system set. Alright, so for the motor mount and tank mount, I just built these. I just bought some angle bracket, ran the screws from here, a supportive brace here, and yeah, you can see where I have it bolted in underneath. I relocated the horns. You can see the hole kind of back there. That's the positioning hole. So I just drilled 2 new holes, locked it in. So I have the 2 ground wires, one from the motor, one from the float switch. Then have the power to the motor and the 12 volt to the low level switch. And then, you know, short little run right here from the tank. That's the outlet. And then everything runs up underneath the headlight here and back towards the battery in the fuse box. So in the fuse box, from the forums, everybody's placing it in number 46, which is supposed to be hot only when in run mode. So I have that running through a gasket up here, and I'll probably seal that. Remote reservoir, I just used the standard cap that came with the tank. I drilled and tapped through the top of it for a nipple for the hose, and then the hose just runs up, and then through my custom intake I made, I just drilled holes in some bracket with some plastic body rivets, and that holds this little reservoir. So that's how I'll fill. I have a strainer just for precautionary measures, and that's where I'll fill at. And I'll just have a standard refill size I'll measure out whenever I get a low level light. That way, because they are vented caps, from the Snow Performance tank. So if you were to overflow, this should, if it is venting, you could hypothetically, if you fill over this height, that it would overfill through the vents. For the injectors, for the boost controller wire, the fuel pressure rail sensor is down here at the left. So that same black wire comes up here. So I just spliced into it and ran that back to the controller with the wire loom. And this is kind of covered up right here by the cover, engine cover. The nozzle, I drilled and tapped on the intake side. Make sure you be extra careful if you do this to not get any shavings inside. Take all precautionary measures and do not get any shavings inside. The other one, it's very close to that radiator hose down there, so that's very difficult to get it located and angled right when you tap and install that. So those wires or feed lines are just running back to the T, and then the solenoid valve is underneath right here where I have 2 bolts mounted to hold it. And then everything runs back. I'll clean up the last little bit on the wire ties, and that'll complete the install. So for what I did for feeding the wire to underneath the dash, brought all my wires up. Most of them I brought to the left side of the battery, brought it up around near the brake booster over here and down. I did pull up the air tray here for the windshield wipers. There's 2 15mm bolts, one for each windshield wiper. Once you take those off, there's a tapered spline there. You can just wiggle it back and forth till those come off. Then there's just 5 plastic screw rivets that come off. Pull that up. And then for the windshield washer assembly or wiper assembly, there's just, I believe they were 3 13mm bolts. Just do those, twist it out, and then you've got plenty of access. And then 2 little plastic clips here that go on top of the mount for this other wire harness cover. And then I just ran it through these 2 bolts. There is a spot weld. It's kind of covered up with my grommet and everything, but if you just drill to the top right, like 1 or 2 o'clock right there, that's what I did. Put my grommet in there, ran the wires, the boost tube, and then put sealant around that just to make sure it's good and sealed. I mean, it's away from everything, but there still is pressure buildup and water, moisture back there, so I just went ahead and put sealant. So then let me walk through and show you where it comes up through. Yeah, it's a mess of wires I gotta clean up, but yeah, so it'll come out right there. So those are the 2 black screws that I mentioned earlier. For the meth kit, I've put 3 LEDs. This one in the top up here, you can see it. This is a red LED, so I have that one tied to the float switch. It's on all the time. I know it's low and need to be careful with how much I get on the pedal. This is the one for the primary, and this is for the power boost on the solenoid. The voltage is changing to the pump, so it does start dim, and when you know you hit to your max limit, it will be full power to this, so it'll be full instead of dim. And same thing from this one, it'll go from dim to full light based off of how you have your controller set up. So in the center here, I had mentioned I put a switch, so the switch I have on and off depending on what tune I'm running. So when it's on, I know the red light, have it pressed in for the methanol tune. That way I can just turn it on and off. And then this is where I have the controller installed, where it sits nicely, and the settings there. The boost settings that I have is, I'll put it in the link below.
Alright guys, for extras to make a cleaner install. This is a 12 volt, that LED red. It can be wired normally open or normally closed. I didn't make the mistake. I'm just telling you not to make the mistake. They do make intermittent ones where it's momentary switches. So it only activates when it's pressed in. This one is normally open or normally closed. Comes with a wiring diagram. I like it. Let's see here. T-Splice, I used one different than the kit. I didn't use these. The one I used is a it's a splicer, but then a male terminal connector goes into that. So then that's the next thing. Get lots of 16 to 22 gauge male and female terminal connectors for your install. Wire. I used a whole roll. I would recommend 16 gauge. Grommets. So this one, this is for the firewall connection and the center console. I use the 5/8, which is 0.477 ID. It's snug on the center console connection and pretty tight on the firewall. But that's the best sizes that I had to fit, and I still use silicone to seal that. Heat shrink, obviously, doing electrical makes a cleaner install. Wire ties, you know what those look like. And just some wire loom to keep everything together and clean. Boost tubing, I'll put the link down below. I bought this from Amazon. It's silicone, 3/16 ID. The blue tube goes directly into this, and then just put a wire tie on it to make sure it stays secure. It's pretty tough to push on, so lube it up with some spit and slide it on as far as you can, and then just put a little wire tie snug, not too tight, just to make sure it's there. Then you also, the length was long enough to go from the blue tube straight to the port that I connected into using the coupler, Y coupler. So it's a 3/8 by 3/8 by 3/16. So the piece worth my thumb is 3/16, and then the straight through is 3/8, which is this. So the 3/8 by 3/8 by 3/16. This was just a Dorman kit. I needed it, so I bought the whole kit. And that's pretty much covers it. If you need any more info, comment below. Let me know. Peace.
Just so you guys know what my ride kind of looks like. I've only had it about 6 months. So I've rebadged the wheels and the front with Thundercat logos. That's kind of my thing on all my cars. So added a rear window spoiler, and then I've also made my own exhaust. I had to redo all of it. I had just turbo mufflers that are pretty much race mufflers with no packing, and I added resonators first. That still didn't take it down, so then I added those bigger through pipes, or dual 3-inch pipes. I did manage to make the bend, put high flow cats in it, and ran it 3 inches from the turbos back.